Welcome, everyone. So, we're going to talk today about principles of purpose for Gaelic awakening. So, Gaelic awakening, it is a movement which I have started. Um, and, well, I mean, I've put a name on it and I've articulated it in a certain way, but for sure, it's such a basic thing that I'm talking about. I've collated these important processes together. It's so fundamental that it's been happening all over Ireland for a long time and all over the world. But, Gaelic we're using to refer to this phenomenon in Ireland. Um, but I haven't seen someone, put the pieces together. So that's what I've done here. So it's a seven-part, seven-aspect realization or fulfillment of potential, of the Irish potential, who we can be. And so there's spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, political, economic, and cultural awakening, right? These seven awakenings. And so I've started a political party, Gaelic Awakening, and so that is a vehicle for the fifth awakening there, right? The political awakening. Um, but I am a big fan of the idea that politics is downstream from culture, and culture is downstream from consciousness, especially the consciousness of the minority of people who are really just fascinated with the truth and what's real and ideas and so throughout history it's been a small percentage of people who change things. 1% of a country can is more than enough to completely change the country, because most people are living their lives and they've just as important as anyone else, but they're focusing on other stuff. They're focusing on music, or they're focusing on building stuff. They're focusing on machines, or they're focusing on like love with their family. And it's not, most people are interested to some extent in what's going on collectively because it affects us. But really getting into the depths of like what causes stuff and what's the truth of the matter and what's right, a minority of people tend to be, you know, suited to that little specialization. It's just another specialization. Um, the specialization in universality, or like what's going on in general. And so my hope is that this movement can transform Ireland. We don't need to get that many people on board. That's the cool thing. And so let's today we're going to look at principles of purpose, which is a document I have drafted, or the universe has drafted through me, which basically lays out the overall scheme of Gaelic Awakening, the movement, rather than just the political party. So let's get into it. Alrighty. So if we go to www.gaelicawakening.ie, you get to the website. Here we are. Check out that beautiful old-fashioned Clo-Gaelic G, Clo-Gaelic A. Ah, lush. Okay, free speech, fair borders, full sovereignty. This is the three main policies of the party. The political class have lost authority, be it incompetence or rogue intentions. Doesn't matter, right? Whether they're intentionally trying to, work against the interests of the general population, which has happened throughout history, to, take, maybe they've got a love and loyalty for their closer elite groups, not the general public. Some people think that's the case. Or some people think it's just, oh, look, a bunch of errors, incompetence, some corruption, but, nothing too grand, conspiracy sort. It doesn't matter. I think you can think about that on your own time, but like in general, public discourse is irrelevant. It's just a waste of time. It's going to in most cases, that will just distract us, because we know if the policies are bad, they're bad. Doesn't matter whether it's with good or bad intentions. Let's just stick. We can access more people because we won't seem as crazy. Like everyone can agree on the solutions. We don't need to divide the room, on like the causes necessarily. So let us take back what belongs to us. So this is the basic thing of the political party. So here's the website. You got join the movement, click on that, and you will go to a page where you can join the party. Please do. It's free. You can be part of another party, vote for another party, whatever. Being part of Gaelic Awakening, it is a way to say, like, yeah, what they're doing is good. I want to empower that. The more members we have, we need 300 members. We're not there yet to get on the ballot in Ireland. So please consider joining. What we want, you can download the PDF here, what we want, or it's listed on the website. Basically, that's our policies. No to these things, yes to these things. And then principles of purpose. So these policies, they don't come out of nowhere. They are a reflection of and a manifestation of these deeper principles that we're going to look at today. So very briefly, just in case you haven't listened to the previous episodes, few episodes where I've been getting into this, no to the hate speech bill, no to the WHO pandemic treaty, no to mass immigration, no to non-Irish voting in Irish elections, no to making the Irish people homeless or slaves to mortgages and rents, no to using climate change to dismantle our economy and strip us of our freedoms, no to eroding military neutrality, no to future lockdowns, vaccine mandates, or vaccine passports. No to a cashless society, digital ID, and social credit score. No to importing identity politics into our classrooms, boardrooms, and public offices. No to indoctrinating children into transgenderism. No to central banks and their government partners stealing our money via inflation. Yes to lowering taxes, regulations, and government spending by 80% within a decade. Yes to renegotiating our relationship with the European Union and its corporate owners. Yes to an Irish Bill of Rights to empower the individual against government overreach. Yes to closer ties with nations, organizations, and individuals who respect liberty. Yes to encouraging the formation and growth of families. Yes to reviving Gaeilge, our worthy traditions, and the consciousness of the poets. Gaeilge being the Irish language to anyone who's not Irish tuning in. Yes to letting the Irish be Irish, humans be human, and government mind its business. Okay, so that's, and if you're like, whoa, some of them sound a bit spicy there, Jamie. Well, okay, let's take transgenderism. Maybe think, oh, wait a minute, isn't that going a bit far? You can look into it and you can see the rationale. And if you can find a hole in what I'm saying, please tell me. I have no interest in spreading bad ideas. I want to spread love, spread truth, spread community. So please help me. Because I have that mindset, I'm not attached to my ideas. I can throw it away at the drop of a hat if it doesn't make sense anymore. I am loyal only to the truth as I perceive it now, to the best of my ability. As it says there, just a little spoiler alert. Basically, look, I think people should be free to be however they want to be, but in most people don't believe, you can be more than two genders. It's like you're male or female. That's what I generally believe. And so if that's what most people believe, then it's only fair democratically that the taxpayer dollars reflect that norm, and that people don't get in trouble for saying, oh, this is my belief. It's saying, oh no, you got to be tolerant. You can't say that. That's intolerant. But actually, no, like you're being intolerant if you try to stop me saying my half of the story. You have your side of the story, I have my side. And both tolerance is that we all get to be who we want to be. So that would just be like one example where the details, you can look into it. All right, and you can download the PDF, send it to your friends. That would be amazing. And yeah, if you are into this, share it with someone, share a video, share a link to the website, share the PDFs, get into it. Principles of purpose, here we are. All right, so Gaelic Awakening, Principles of Purpose. So I'm just gonna read this. I might comment here and there, but basically I'm just gonna go through it and give you an audio book of this, because this here, I put a lot of time and effort into condensing the rationale of this movement, which is really about bringing consciousness and wisdom into Ireland on various levels. And maybe I could have said, oh, there's 8 levels or there's 10 levels, but you got to choose a certain number, and this seems to work. So 7 it is. Okay. Gaelic Awakening is a people's movement encompassing much more than just the political, but includes contesting and winning elections to place liberty-loving individuals in power. We are for peace, sounds good, justice, kindness, love, togetherness, respect, independence, community. We see value and beauty in all cultures and believe in humanism, international cooperation, learning from our differences, and the fundamental unity and equality of the human race. However, we hold it our sacred duty to put our own family and tribe first, as do all nations, and so we see the wisdom of a return to nourishing the roots of Irish identity, life, and spirit. Our mission encompasses 7 levels or aspects of personal transformation as follows: spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, political, economic, and cultural awakening. Among these, the first is most vital. Enlightened consciousness is the one essential element. When you see you are a branch on the tree of life, who is hurt by chopping other branches? But we do not need all Ireland to awaken. A devoted core is enough to seed a soulful rebirth. One note there, by the way, people in the West might have a tendency to think, oh, putting your own nation first, that sounds a little bit racist or something. But are you calling the whole world racist? Because if you travel around the world and if you meet people from all around the world, and I have been lucky to meet many people around the world because I've traveled a fair bit, and also I'm an English teacher, and so they've come to me. The world, I travel every day in the classroom because I talk to, dozens of nationalities, and I quiz them about stuff and get to know them. And I don't think there's any country where it's basically, it seems like the West is unique in having this lack of loyalty to the country among many people, like a kind of self-hatred. And people from China, people from Thailand, people from South Africa, or wherever it is, people from India, Saudi Arabia, Bolivia, they love where they come from. They love their country, and they think it's natural to put their country first, and they would not hurt their country in order to help someone else, unless it was some real extreme situation. And so I think we are actually a bit out of balance in that I think there's a bit of I don't know, like some weird juju going on in the West. Self-hatred, guilt complex, inferiority complex. So we need to work that out and just, go, look, we need to put ourselves first, and put in an airplane, you put on your own oxygen mask first before you help others, even your kids, because you can't help them if you're not stable. So we need to be stable, and then we can start helping the rest of the world even more than we have been. But yeah, so love to all, but starting with family, and then, your nation, and then, out to the whole world through that. That's the natural localization of love. So, though we are united in our purpose by shared awareness, aims, activities, and fellowship, Gaelic Awakening is, at its core, a self-directed enterprise for one's own self-realization. When we understand and act upon the truth that our personal highest good comes from harmony and cooperation with others in a spirit of oneness and mutual respect, we thrive. Yet it is paradoxically essential to serve the universe starting in the little patch called me. Internally, the individual is thus peaceful, happy, healthy, strong, wise. Externally, altruistic. When a large enough minority of individuals in a culture so transform, a critical mass is reached, and the whole culture experiences a change of gravitational center toward love. There will always, or at least for the foreseeable future, be bad actors who seek to harm, yet they are powerless to do the kind of damage we now witness all around us when a core element of the society is strictly devoted to awakened perspective. Life comes into balance. The important point here in that paragraph is that it's a self-directed enterprise. Like, it's not enough for me, and I have no delusions of grandeur, like that I can change the world, like, on my own. All I can do is my little part, and I think, well, look, it's exciting to me to go, and I have a vision of how I can help. That's very exciting. And, we'll all be dead one day, so while we're here, let's not waste time. Let's give our best gifts. Let's live our best life. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm not attached to the results. Like, well, if it doesn't work, that's fine. I don't care, really. I mean, I want it to work, but I understand that I can be most effective if I am not worried about the results. If I just do my best and, at least I can, know that, yeah, I gave it what I could. I gave it all, and uh, hopefully other people can do the same. And then, and that's the main point. Like, this vision of Gaelic awakening is a decentralized cultural transformation. So you are just as important in it as me. And if we can get like, 200 people in Ireland doing this, like with this vision, really focusing on it, um, even if you're already doing some of the things, there'll be something in here that's new. And you go, oh yeah, and you tell your also quite conscious friends, yeah, hey, here's this thing, check it out. What do you think? 200 people, we can have a huge difference that we can make on the people we come in contact with, and it'll grow and grow. So, okay, Ireland, like all countries, and indeed like all composite things in the wide world of creation, shall change with time and inevitably come to look very different from the place and people we know and love. This is all well and good. It has always been so, and Ireland has changed gracefully through traumas and golden ages both, just as we may hope to do as individuals. Our goal is not to prevent change, but to guide it as best we can toward the dreams of our heart of hearts, to shape masterfully the future with our daily thoughts, feelings, words, and actions, together as a nation with destiny and chance, co-creating Ireland, Europe, and Earth. So, starting in Ireland, but that is, Ireland is Europe, and Europe is Earth. It's all connected, right? So that's how we change from within. Unfortunately, there is an organized, moneyed minority among us who seek to radically alter the nature of our country and all lives within it without our consent. This must be resisted, not only because they deceive and dominate by force, but because their dreams destroy us. So sometimes someone wants something, and unfortunately, that would mean you lose everything. And we have the right, as sovereign beings, we have just as much right as anyone to be here. And so there, well, like I said before, in general, if possible, don't get caught up in conversations about, oh, is this malicious or is it like mass incompetence? Because it's like, well, it doesn't matter actually. So let's focus our mental resources and developing consensus on just the solutions. But sometimes, in order to solve the problem, you do need people to be aware of that there is some malice or some intentional force. And so look at the Great Reset, the WEF, the WHO, Bilderberg Group, or whatever. There's definitely groups who have agendas, and they're trying to. We don't necessarily know exactly what they want or why they want it. I'm sure they all think it's a good thing, otherwise they wouldn't do it. They might think, whatever, like in their internal dictionary, it's good. But so that's the point. There is, like, without a doubt, an agenda with a lot of money behind it, trying to force change in Ireland. And so we just need to make sure that the change that comes reflects the soul of Ireland. And that Ireland will change, the personality of Ireland will change, just like within your lifetime, your personality changes, but your soul does not. It's all coming from that same place. And so that's it. All right. One day the human race may indeed all look the same, speak the same, think the same, and act the same, with the whole globe politically unified under one superstate authority. So a global monoculture. But if this should come to pass, it must be by the voluntary choices of individual human beings, not the iron fist of conspiratorial and duplicitous bureaucracy mandating the dissolution of such rich webs of tradition as this planet abounds in, commanding and cajoling the nations of the earth to submit to centralized control by those whose tyranny disqualifies their rule. Humanity is already one big family, all the more beautiful for our diversity. And should our various customs, genetics, and worldviews merge into a single global synthesis, it will doubtless be beautiful and ripe for fruition into life's highest virtues. But it is not necessary to have such a global monoculture to be virtuous and enjoy the achievement of world peace. Yet Ireland's moneyed elite and their globalist masters are religiously set upon forcing this. Again, we're not saying these elites are controlling everything, but just certainly part of what's going on. And yeah, so It is very odd that Irish politicians are so determined to change Ireland beyond recognition, when most Irish people, and much of the billions abroad, actually love Ireland the way it is, or indeed the way it was, before the elite began their initially subtle cultural revolution. Irishness is certainly ever evolving, like music, but the state's enforcing of mass immigration and regressive leftist ideology is a whole new genre. We are told our music needs changing. It is as if we still believe the imperial brainwashing, our uniqueness isn't worth preserving. But every culture is precious that abides by the laws of love, and ours is even exceptional. Ireland, era, is overflowing with wit, humour, beauty, literature, tale-tellers, music, the crack. We have learnt much wisdom from the furnace of imperialism and the near obliteration of our language and traditions, and are blessed with a rich inheritance from the ancient Gaels. We can share our eyes and voice with the world, but only if we dare to remain ourselves. Just as each, and remaining ourselves, by the way, again, we're talking about culture, not genetics, right? Like genetically, Ireland has had input from other cultures, within Europe up until recently, and maybe they've shifted the culture a little bit, but mostly they integrated and into this worldview. And so that's here, Gaelic Awakening, it's all just about culture. The only connection is that, if you have a million Africans join Ireland, that there's a million people with radically different culture. So that's the only way that race is relevant, is in terms of culture, like the way people believe and the way they behave. And that is completely reasonable, and it's not racist to say, oh, okay, you can have your way of doing things, but here we prefer our own way. No disrespect, but we like our way, And, imagine if we went to another country and said, and they were like, oh yeah, look, here's the thing, we want to keep our culture. We don't want to just become kind of like you, or some things you do, we don't really want here. It would be very presumptuous for us to force it upon them, So there is a thing here where there's a reasonable place to maintain your culture. It can change, but to have a general fundamental culture that is operating in a certain part of the world. And that's what we're talking about. So it's not genetic, we're talking about a cultural legacy. And new races can join in that. You can be African and raised in Ireland and speaking Irish and, deeply embedded in that worldview. And you'll have some of your own culture. Like I have a bit of Australian. My parents, moved to Australia from Ireland where I was born and raised. So I've got some Australian, which I'm bringing into Ireland, And so that's all well and good. But the main thing is that we're all on the same page with this basic commitment to like the way of the Irish, not to totally change the song, but like a musician, you improvise, but you don't just start doing some crazy rock pig solo over the middle of it. You need to fit in with the music that's already flowing. All right, just as each individual has the ability to be their own favorite person among their friends, even while the whole social circle love, celebrate, and support one another, so too can the whole globe uphold and deepen friendship, diplomacy, and connection among all nations, even while each nation prefers its own ways and naturally seeks to protect its self-expression and freedom to differ from its peers. We do not need billionaire networks pushing unique friend nations into monotonous conformity in the name of progress. We need individuality. As we each go our own way, our virtues and vices will be an unending experiment and lesson for the whole circle, or sphere, and progress will be the natural fruit of freedom and truth. Each culture has a role to play, a song to sing, a point to make. May we merge as we so choose. Against an unprecedented conspiracy to claim power over sovereign souls and nation-states, the Holy Grail from which redemption flows is a return to invigorated liberty in nationhood. Let us teach the world as in ages past. It is time for Ireland to let go of our inferiority complex once and for all. We are enough. We are plenty. Let us heal and humbly set our boundaries. Let us lay a fair foundation for Irish souls to flourish, that we may encourage our awakening. By daring to do right by ourselves, we can once again inspire the uplifting of other peoples. Gaelic Awakening and the awakening movements of all nations, whatever name they shall take for the quest of truth, justice, balance, and freedom, shall do our utmost to restore our rightful power to choose our life and destiny, and thus bring history onto the best possible path for any eventual melting together of the human mosaic, for individuals to choose freely. The ends never justify the means. Only peaceful, just, and mindful action can bear good fruit. But our movement is not confined to resisting the bad, but far more so is devoted to the good. We defend individual liberty and national sovereignty, but even these are secondary to the awakening and weaving of our own divine consciousness, cultivation of the garden within. Evolving ourselves in 7 essential aspects of human potential, we experience and express the happy life of eudaimonia, personal flourishing, and so serve wisdom while whistling. There is no guarantee of external success in our aims, but trying cannot hurt, and with faith we shall surely prevail. It may take a long time, but after all, the real fun is in the journey. In the meantime, as long as Ireland is a tribe and an island with a great heart for hospitality, but a fiery will to be ourselves, Gaelic Awakening shall fight for Irish liberty and sovereignty, so as to see our island home flourish as we haven't in a millennium. The best is yet to come. In fact, the best is right now. We need only open our eyes, our hearts, our minds to the truth. Okay, so that's the introduction there. Then we got spiritual, little summary you could read, the base main ideas, and then the body. Emotional summary, and then the main ideas. Or the body, yeah. So here we go. Spiritual, awakening to our true identity as one branch of the tree of the one universal consciousness, i.e., love. Thereby realizing the root cause of and true solution to the increasing dysfunction we see in the world. How to wake up. Okay, so, and this is expanding on that summary. Unbelievable as stories of enlightenment may sound, it is in fact a very real phenomenon and experience. Actually, the realest experience there is, for it means to become truly awake. Thinking is an improvement on animal present moment instinctivity, but present moment awareness with the ability to turn thinking on and off at will is where true sanity awaits us. Most human beings are not yet aware of this possibility, and those who are mostly yet to master the skill and overcome the momentum of false identification with constant self-talk. Addressing this root ignorance is the necessary and sufficient condition for complete peace, individual, interpersonal, and global, once enough of us begin to so transform our thinking. An important aspect of this is the resulting understanding that we live in a world of people who know not what they do and are very much in a kind of sleepwalking autopilot mode where their true self in its inherent loving trustworthiness is hijacked and made unconscious by what could best be considered a psychic parasite or mental virus, the voice in the head. The true self is silence, able to speak from its intelligent stillness, but not itself mere sound. The challenge for each of us is to rise above the familiar opiating trance of endless thinking. However, thought is a power and not itself evil. Just as fire can cook food or burn your house down, thought must be used carefully. The mind is the perfect servant, but a terrible master. There are many roads to evolve this awareness, but The Power of Now is a good place to start, which is an excellent book by Eckhart Tolle, which really opened my mind up to the reality of who we really are and how peaceful and beautiful and powerful it is. Okay, emotional. Awareness of one's emotions and prevalent inner blocks against this. Elite manipulation of emotional blind spots. Ireland's emotional turmoil and unprecedented psychological malaise. Healthy emotivity and self-expression. Individual well-being requires that one acknowledges, accepts, and adjusts one's emotions. As much as one might think it stupid, lame, boring, uncool, new age, or undesirable to look within and keep a constant watch over the feelings that course through oneself, the truth is that one lives as a slave to one's ego, unobserved thought patterns, as long as one is unaware of the emotions one is experiencing on a moment-to-moment basis. Self-control and sanity are impossible without knowing why we are thinking, interpreting, resisting, or acting the way we are. For instance, the Irish in particular have a strong inherited tendency to feel guilt, despite being unusually innocent as far as historical grievances go, largely due to the gaslighting mind games of the British Empire, then Catholic Church, and now the woke globalist establishment, which really runs Leinster House, via unseen webs of money. If we wish to change Ireland or the world for the better, we must above all see clearly. This means we must be able to notice when irrational thoughts are arising due to our emotions. Speaking of emotions, if there's any Catholics listening, thank you for being here. I'm not saying the Catholic faith and religion in itself, but was committing mind games, because that is contravenes the actual message of Jesus and the principles of Christianity. What I'm saying is that it's a fact that nefarious dark forces took control of the Catholic Church in Ireland to a very large degree, and hence the Magdalene laundries, the unmarked graves, the sexual abuse, etc. So, but that is part of the story that they inherit after the British. They kind of adopted the mantle of social control through guilt, and so it's a continuous legacy up to the present day. Okay, if we take an honest look at contemporary Ireland, how healthy are we in psychological terms? The fact that physiological illness is prevalent and rising suggests we also have some mental imbalances, as bodily health is so affected by lifestyle. Indeed, we see widespread unhappiness, depression, anxiety, breakdown in social skills, involuntary celibacy, so people who can't get a relationship, no matter how hard they try. Compulsive promiscuity, can't help, constantly going out, looking for some fun, which is in balance is, is a beautiful thing. But, I think there's a lot of people who it seems like they're selling themselves short, like they're caught up in this. It's like an addiction, that's the only place they can get that sense of aliveness. But that's, there's much, much else to get that aliveness. And when you unlock and access that kind of more spiritual, deeper access, deeper sense of aliveness, then sexuality falls into perfect place in a more respectful, dignified, and even sexy way. The sexiest sex is when there's love, Anyway, let's see. Fear of long-term relationship, addiction, extremist ideologues spreading intolerance while professing to be fighting intolerance, great demand for fear porn media, propaganda going unnoticed, state authoritarianism, gender dysphoria and transsexual evangelism, self-censorship, taboos against questioning progressive sacred cows, apathy and hopelessness about political corruption and folly, internalized colonialism in the form of obedience to authority figures, suppressing one's opinions or feelings so as not to offend, us against them hostility based on group identity, and on and on. How many of these have you felt? How often do you feel them? Are you aware of their presence when they arise? How do these emotional currents affect your thoughts, perceptions, and actions? While you might feel some reluctance to ask such uncomfortable, vexing questions, this is where freedom lies. Or lives, as the document says. This is where freedom lives. We can treat this negativity with an interested neutrality, simply taking stock of what's what. No need for drama, just practically assessing what clear vision shows. Cool. Next, intellectual. Dependence of political change on intellectual change. Importance of an organized minority of truth seekers for the defeat of tyranny. Self-mastery. Stoicism and practical philosophy. Logic, ethics, rhetoric. History, politics, economics, health, literature, science, pressing problems and solutions, etiquette, other cultures, self-sufficiency. So there's a bunch in this one. Intellectual. All right. Upon the foundation of spiritual self-honesty and integrity, with emotional awareness and pragmatic habits of engaging with one's instincts, reactions, and motivations, it becomes far simpler for one to discover, verify, and refine the true nature of what is and what should be. Knowledge essentially has two kinds, descriptive and prescriptive. What is right and wrong can mean what is true/false, and what is good/bad. One is fact, the other is our orienting ideal. Politics is downstream from culture, our dominant descriptions and prescriptions en masse. But culture is downstream from consciousness. In particular, the understandings of the few among us who are obsessively interested in figuring out just what is right and wrong. Not all are adequately capable, interested, or devoted to serve such a crucial societal function. And indeed, most of us instead specialize in masteries of other domains: sport, art, business, love, an endless list. But without ego and with maximum humility at least a minority, must always be thinking through the state of things, where we want to go, and how we can get there. This is the proper role of the intelligentsia, not smirking and swapping buzzwords over cocktails, but rolling up one's sleeves, just like the plumber, for the dirty work of facing our own minds. Bias and misperception are ubiquitous, even among the genuinely truth-seeking, so we must be diligent and link into networks of thinkers who can inform, inspire, critique, and persuade one another by iterative interactions to gradually home in on an accurate mapping of reality. We will always be a little bit wrong in both senses, just as yang always has a bit of yin in it, and vice versa. But what matters is that we try our best, assess, adapt, and repeat onward. And I need your help in that regard. You know, I have my own blind spots and biases, and I would really appreciate if you would do me a solid, join the movement, connect with me, and help, you know, keep me sane, basically. Okie dokie. So, politics is the negotiation of compromise between opposing forces on the issues confronting a given society, its challenges and opportunities. But political agents are only as useful as the ideas and forces which propel and empower them. We cannot change Irish politics for the better until enough of us, luckily about 1% should be enough, perhaps 15% with the gist, the general idea, until enough of us wield a clear understanding of the terrain upon which the political agendas are competing. This boils down to you and me doing a lot of reading, listening, thinking, writing, and talking. Getting into books, Substacks, podcasts, independent news, neighbors' anecdotes, debates. This goes very deep and is ultimately an unending quest for ever greater clarity on questions whose answers generate further questions. It encompasses at minimum a vague awareness of the big picture of what a happy world looks like, and in many areas will require detailed knowledge, say of ethics, health, history, political economy, psychology, but culminating in a sound grasp of the nature of the beast that stalks us, our children and our grandchildren. We are confronted with a meticulously organized conspiracy to replace individual liberty and national sovereignty with globally centralized control. It matters not whether the agents thereof truly believe this to be in our best interests or are simply deceptive and malicious. What matters is that we attain a crystal clear picture in our minds and hearts of what is and what should be, so that we can mobilize popular resistance to this attempted enslavement. That may seem a bit excessive, but I don't think so. And when in doubt, be extra careful, right? If you're not sure if your kid can eat something, oh, is that safe? Is that mushroom safe? Leave it. If you're not totally sure, you leave it. If you're like, oh, are we kind of about to be enslaved? I'm not sure. Well, assume you are. Just be really careful, you know? Err on the side of caution, yeah? But yeah, don't get lost in fantasies. But, you know, you can do what you need to do and be like, I don't need to know whether, you know, they're trying to help us or not, whatever. I know that these things are happening. Let's resist it. In terms of what specifically the intellectual awakening involves, notable mention goes to self-mastery, in the sense of becoming aware of and in control of one's internal processes. Stoicism and practical philosophy, being the use of logic and experience to guide one's will and ingrained habits toward wisdom. Check out Epictetus or, you know, Marcus Aurelius or that kind of stuff. Rhetoric, Seneca, also good. Rhetoric, being the art and science of communication. History, especially of Ireland and Europe, including the essentials of political and economic schools of thought and their track records. Health, to ensure the mind has an optimal body for the challenging work of our sevenfold awakening. Literature, for its many subtle but vital lessons, not easily teachable except through narrative. Science, being the method itself and a basic grasp of the nature of the physical universe. Knowledge of our pressing problems and potential solutions. Critical thinking skills, like knowing how to assess what's true, like, you know, the genetic fallacy. Hitler liked that, therefore it's bad. Well, Hitler was also vegetarian. That doesn't mean vegetarianism's bad. So that's one example. That's the genetic fallacy. So you can just, you know, look up critical thinking, you know, 101 or whatever, and you'll see it, like, or logical fallacies. That's a good one. A fallacy is something that's false. It doesn't make sense. And you'll see a list of these. And they're patterns that you can recognize of faulty logic. It looks like logic, but it's actually nonsense. And so very useful to be aware of critical thinking skills. Etiquette, like manners, good manners. Awareness of other cultural positions. Like, noticing like how South Americans or Asians, approach things in general in a certain different from a different angle, and there can be beneficial things for us to integrate into our culture, and so on, with the focus on developing oneself to be a self-sufficient center of social order. Sounds fun, huh? Cool. Physical. Golden zone combining brain and brawn. Health and fitness for clear thinking. Natural lifestyle fundamentals. Energy and confidence to endure attacks from status quo. Self-discipline and personal growth via physical mastery. Counterintuitive though it may seem, a true intellectual cares deeply about physical health and fitness, including building a decent degree of musculature and cardiovascular stamina, not merely because it makes one look more attractive, though that does have many benefits, but because a devotee of wisdom can only think as well as the physical brain and the systems which support it, and can only act for justice with as much power as the hand, foot, and spine. Not to mention there are life lessons only available via such physicality as dancing or sport. We are sentient beings, but embodied, and we must respect our animalistic aspect if we wish to access the full potential of our higher capacities. A tree's branches can only reach heaven if its roots reach down to hell. This originally refers to the need to be familiar with one's dark side to prosper as a being of light, but in a similar way, a human being is only as sophisticated as he is grounded in a firm foundation of physical balance. Clean diet, vigorous exercise, quality sleep, social bonding, being in nature, detoxing, stretching, breathwork, sexuality. The wise find a golden zone between bodybuilder and bookworm, the best of both worlds. It is not only that an unhealthy or inactive body experiences physical dysregulations which impair the ability of the nervous system to process input and produce appropriate cognition. It is also that achieving physical vitality, power, and adaptability requires one confront and master the messier realms of human experience. Our inner victim, critic, saboteur, liar, sloth, addict, rogue, doubter, fool, tyrant, coward, and many other masks the subconscious wears. These are instinctive elements of the psyche which are largely out of conscious control, but whose whispers of poor counsel become more audible the more they frustrate our progress. We develop self-discipline in the quest to prove ourselves capable of being true to our word and achieving what we have set out to achieve in physical transformation. We learn to detect the difference between the will of the maladaptive mental mechanisms that hold us back and the will of our own higher self battling for balance like a surfer upon a charging wave. Mastering the body requires us to master the mind, and so is a fine method of finding sanity. The other reason physicality is essential to the peaceful warrior who seeks to fight for justice is that weaklings win no revolutions. The paradigm shift history now calls us to make within ourselves and our communities demands extreme strength and stamina of body and mind to overcome the intense attacks of the status quo whose dysfunction has awoken us to action. Let us hope we will not need to defend ourselves from naked force, foreign or domestic, but it is essential we be prepared. Here, as in other areas, martial arts is beneficial. More vital, however, is the sustained energy, mental clarity, and confidence that a powerful body brings. On the topic of martial arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, no-gi especially, is very, very practical for one-on-one because you can basically immobilize someone without hurting them. Then in order to be able to defend yourself, if there's more than one attacker, then striking of some kind, like boxing or Muay Thai, just Thai kickboxing. All right, political. Long-standing injustices in Ireland, recent government madness awakening the public, globalist tyranny now increasingly noticed, hindsight damning and incriminating the COVID response, communicating carefully, our coming electoral power grab, elite unprepared due to arrogance, cycling wisdom into politics, libertarianism. Okay, Ireland has long suffered unjust political leadership. Luckily for us, things here and around the world have gotten so bad that our way of life is in grave danger of collapsing. Thus, more people than ever are looking around and asking themselves if the establishment really are all that wise and trustworthy, and whether those deranged and hateful conspiracy theorists might actually be normal, questioning citizens whom ruthless power needed to demonize. To begin with, it is sufficient to note how insanely out of balance basic government policy has become. Unchecked mass immigration, attacks on free speech, bowing to Brussels as if they be the new London, importing culturally toxic ideology into our schools, jeopardizing our precious military neutrality, and much besides. But a true political awakening requires we admit that the problem goes much deeper than this. In truth, as fantastic and incredible as it may sound, there is a well-coordinated network of billionaire dynasties, banks, NGOs, and those beholden to their reach across media, academia, politics, business, and science, who have been caught in the act of ushering in a one-world government in terrifying conflict with the basic norms of human rights, liberalism, democracy, and free market capitalism. The WEF, World Economic Forum, Bilderberg Group, UN, in United Nations, WHO, World Health Organization, which is part of the UN, Council on Foreign Relations, World Bank, IMF, the invisibly homogeneous central banking cartel all over the world, the surveillance state. These are but some of the respectable masks behind which it certainly appears true villains are smirking at us. Presumably, the majority within these organizations are not aware of the big picture and true agenda they serve, but the leadership level have illustrated clear intent. So, to clarify here, these groups, right? So let's say the central banks, we don't know exactly what they're doing, right? But, or, the World Bank, but we see the effects of their actions, right? And we see that it's harmful, and that we see all these organizations, and it's not clear how coordinated they are with each other. They could, but they have the result of pushing the world towards a centralization of power globally. And many of these, the high-level officers within these organizations have, been caught, or they've openly said they would like to see a global government, or like at least a global network of powers, like whether it's a global single government, or whether it's a kind of oligarchy where you have a dozen powers who are all maybe have their own domains among themselves, but for the intents and purposes of the public, it's just one big mass at the top, and they tell us what to do. They're totally unified against us anytime there's a conflict. So it's as crazy as it sounds. If you do the research, it's very clear. Many elite groups, the leadership, or at least part of the leadership of them, are pushing in this direction. Again, we don't know why, but let's be careful and let's take countermeasures. So, however, the tipping point has come. Now, to assume there is no conspiracy is unreasonable. To assume there is unreasonable. You might think, I'm not sure. But to assume that there's no, definitely no. Well, that's unreasonable, given the evidence. The slow-motion globalist takeover of individual liberty and national sovereignty all across the West has entered territory of such obvious injustice that its gains of power are coming at an ever steeper price as the public awakens to the truth. The World Trade Center attacks were a bit odd, as was, the Tower 7 thing. It's not mentioned in the report, but there was another tower. How couldn't you mention it? And, there was funding from the Pakistani intelligence agencies or something. And there's, all these little things were that doesn't quite make sense. So it was a bit odd, but okay, whatever. As was the war on terror with its oily corruption. So too the 2008 financial crisis and bankster bailouts, and the revelations of Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, as well as the way the mainstream media kept seeming to overlook essential aspects of all of the above to the benefit of the powerful, even while they seemed to go the exact opposite way with political candidates who didn't do right by the powers that be. Then COVID came along. The cure was deadlier than the disease, and so-called lockdowns and a barrage of similarly sinister vocabulary were foie gras down our throats in a pandemonium of fear-mongering during an unprecedented assault on civil liberties and traditional Western norms, furthered and strung out by repeated goalpost shifting, selective reporting, twisted statistics, outright lying, gaslighting, coordinated public shaming, peer pressure, carrot and stick incentives, cult-like fixation on in-group concepts, and never a mention by our leaders of any mistakes made or goals modified in the course of their newfound mission. No candid explanations for why the story kept changing and why things didn't seem to completely fit. The public learnt not to ask questions, or else went the other way entirely and began to question everything. A few years later, it is now clear as day and undeniable that the virus was nowhere near as deadly as we were told, yet was almost certainly an escaped laboratory creation of the very scientists who were tasked with overseeing the global response. Dr. Fauci, for example, was deeply involved in both of these. We know the experimental injections forced upon us were both unsafe and ineffective, and are the chief culprit for the unprecedented rise in excess deaths we are seeing all around the world. Chief culprit, it's not clear exactly what's happening, but that is the main candidate that seems to be implicated. More study is needed. And yet these injections must be stopped immediately, because it's like they're still being recommended. It's like, but very likely they're causing a lot of harm. Always in history, we've pulled them back even for much less harm. So like 100 times less harm, they were pulled off the shelves like a few decades ago. And yet enormous sums of money were allowed to be made free of any liability by the pharmaceutical giants. We know the lockdowns destroyed businesses, homes, marriages, health, happiness, dreams, and caused countless injuries and deaths that dwarf anything the virus could have inflicted upon us had we left it to run its natural course. We also know this period saw the greatest wealth transfer in human history, from the already hobbled middle class to the billionaires. It turns out Vanguard and BlackRock own substantial, huge controlling stakes in big media and big pharma. A conflict of interest? These are but two large institutional vehicles for billionaire power, but they speak volumes. Thus it is that we, the truth seekers of this age, are coming to understand the fight we have been in all along without realizing. Our eyes are adapting to the dark and see clearly enough the shapes of a global order built upon inhuman collectivism, striking for our very freedom. Alas for these lost souls, their psychopathy has made them poor judges of we who shall fight. Those who know not love may spend their lives scheming for power to fill the hole within, but their ignorance of love prevents them from understanding it is a power beyond all else. Above all, our struggle against tyranny is a spiritual war of ideas, energies, states of being. Yet part of waging it wisely is to communicate carefully. The true yang gives yin just enough. We can tailor our words to meet each listener where they are, though never shirking from stating controversial truths if asked, and swell the ranks of those who know we are at war. So the basic takeaway from there is there's a lot of evidence to think there's an intentional conspiracy going on, like a conspiracy theory which turns out to be a fact, and as we have had in the past in many cases, right? And so, but the key thing is love, we don't need us against them psychology and hostility and hatred against the people doing this. That'll just entrench their position. What we need is love. So I was just thinking recently, we have the Great Reset and then the Great Awakening, which is people becoming aware of what's been going on and, bringing in a different future, a future of love rather than the dark future which has been secretly planned. But then I think we need the Great Forgiving. So the Great Awakening needs to forgive the Great Reset. All the people involved in the Great Awakening need to forgive all the people involved in the Great Reset and say, hey, I understand you did this from spiritual ignorance and that you are love and we are love. So, hey, let's all love, All right. Doesn't mean you can't resist them. Take resisting action, but you can actually be much more powerful if you can have love in your eyes and speak, and you can win many people over to your side if you do that as well. So, if and when a small but focused core of the reasonably awakened Irish join forces to speak the truth with ferocity and directness, but heart and kindness, we will snap the sleepers out of their trance and turn the tables on our would-be overlords, storm their power centers in sudden landslide election victories, which put servants of liberty and sovereignty in office. It seems likely the tyrannical systems encroaching upon us due to a lack of faith in humanity are for that very same reason blinded to the possibility that we can marshal such a response. Were our intellectual and political awakening to occur gradually, they would set up defense mechanisms to ensure democratic elections be either fraudulent or unable to change much. But arising as fast as Ireland now is, we have great hope that we have been underestimated. Due to the severe risks involved in election interference, while genuine journalists can easily be contacted by whistleblowers, it seems most likely we are being corralled into servitude by politicians who are genuinely elected, but by a sleepy, manipulated electorate. and are for the most part unaware of the agenda they serve. Thus, democracy is the dragon's soft belly. Alternatively, if elections are already rigged and unable to be won by popular uprising, our movement will, by its mass support, be eloquent evidence of such criminal machinations, and so provide the best possible circumstance for concerted public pressure and investigation to uncover proof of the crime, and so mobilize the whole population to take back our freedom. Either way, developing our intellectual potential is the utmost, and deploying it in service to achieving a landslide reclamation of the legislature is our best move for defeating tyranny. Practically, for each individual, the political awakening means studying the principles that underlie proper government policy and then allowing this wisdom to flow back out into the world, having conversations, creating or joining political projects, and voting where we can. At its core, wise politics is that founded on a reverence for individualism. The fact that a soul who truly goes deep into doing right by oneself comes to see that we are all branches of one great tree, and that my highest self-interest is also yours. So I help myself, my family, my friends, countrymen, and all human beings, simply by being self-sufficient enough to reach a point of overflowing abundance. This is love, kindness, charity, leadership, justice. There are many nuances and aspects to something as complex as running a society, but we can begin with libertarianism and classical liberalism and begin to build upon this, filling in the gaps in our own ways as we come to know the leaderless perfection of natural systems. Yet we must also understand the many other schools of thought and why they fall short. Along the way, we can politely disagree with others and among ourselves about the exact nature of the political ideal. So long as we are growing spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, and physically, our grasp of what is and ought to be in politics shall blossom with wisdom. Okay, so economic. Self-sufficiency and productive contribution to Ireland. Economic freedom bringing political freedom. Practical investments. The home as foundation for freedom. Acquiring sought-after skills, rootedness in local community. Economic awakening is all about self-sufficiency and productive contribution to society. We are physical beings whose needs and reasonable wants must be provided for by honest work. Each must put in time, energy, attention, and intelligence to create a goods or service that the human next to you wants or needs. Do this at a high enough quality or low enough price, and the people will beg you to take their money, for they need it less than what you offer. If you fail, you will have learned a great deal and be better placed for whatever comes next. You can rejoin the majority of the population as an employee and perhaps later try again. Not only will this community enriching virtuous activity boost your emotional life, but also make it slightly easier for Ireland as a whole to be wealthy enough to pay political attention. For they who prefer employment to the risks and responsibilities of entrepreneurship, there are ethical businesses one may join. But an employee must keep enough savings to ride out any unexpected termination on foot of refusing to bow to government enforced orthodoxy. Independence reduces the risk and thus leverage of political interference in one's livelihood. It is unwise to be dependent on the state or some politically affiliated corporation for one's resources. These can be withheld in order to pressure the conscientious individual to forsake integrity in order to continue feeding one's family and enjoying the dignities of normal life. Furthermore, the indebted wage slave earning peanuts in a soul-destroying job is doomed to come home tired, frustrated, depressed, and numb, any free time spent on base pleasures. This leaves little room for willingness or ability to be politically active, conveniently enough for those wishing to conceal the fundamental unfairness of the crony capitalism we endure. By building one's own personal kingdom of economic independence, the door is opened for paying attention to current affairs, studying the underlying causes, pondering solutions, and taking a stand for justice. Economic freedom is essential to any enduring political freedom. Now, there's some people I know in Ireland, some friends perhaps even, who would kind of scorn or scoff a bit at the idea of building your wealth and, being like interested in like an economic self-sufficiency and wealth. They're like, oh no, that's for those, jerks who are oppressing us, and oh, that's all stupid. But think about this. I think the people who want to control you, who you don't like, they want you to hate wealth. They want you to not have money. They want you to think that, oh, that's part of their game. The truth is that if you are staying, poor, or, you don't have much money, it's hard to make ends meet, actually you are exactly playing along to the plan that they have for you. If you can become economically successful financially successful, you're totally doing the opposite of what these people want. These people who are trying to, have a society of haves and have-nots, All right, so let's get practical. Apart from bringing in more money by establishing our own businesses or working as an employee and putting away significant savings in case of sudden storms, there are many less obvious ways to win our freedom from the systems governments control. First, we can keep some of our savings in assets more worthy than inflatable paper money, bullion of gold and silver, dividend-paying stocks in companies with sustainable prospects, bonds, real estate, for those with the means, or riskier investments such as cryptocurrency, a small amount of which could prove lucrative should it ultimately succeed as a currency. By the way, any words I use which you don't understand, look it up on the internet, to help understand, You might be like, I don't know what he means. Well, just remember, of course, we all have the internet, so it's easy to look up, yeah? But perhaps the best of all is investing in one's own home, not in aesthetic improvements, but in installing a rain tank and filter system, a greenhouse with tools and supplies, a chicken coop to provide enough high-quality nutrition for the price of your vegetable scraps, equipment for fermenting yogurt, cheese, kombucha, beer, and pickles. You don't need much really, just a bunch of jars in most cases. Solar panels and a gas and maybe vinegar to clean them. Solar panels and a gas generator. Not only will this save you vast sums of money, your health will improve and independence. Beyond these basics, we can also upgrade our skill sets in a number of ways that will save us money, but also expand our personal power and ability to stand strong in the face of attack. Availing of the internet or paid classes, one can learn the essentials of plumbing, electricity, carpentry, brickwork, roofing, flooring, and insulation, so as to take care of oneself as well as potentially enjoy a side stream of income by doing favors for others in one's local network. We can also master first aid, survival skills, cooking, hunting, fishing, mechanics, and so on. Naturally, most of us will not feel compelled to do all these things, but this is to illustrate the field of possibilities for self-sufficiency. With the foundation of a productive home, one's own business, sought-after skills, pragmatic investments, thrifty spending, and a network of locals who appreciate your presence, the state will find it hard to uproot such a force of freedom. Finally, cultural. Okay. Cultural. Room for growth in Irish culture, effects of historical trauma, prioritizing native traditions, setting boundaries, diversity and uniformity, reviving Gaelic traditions, cultural immersion, creativity, empowering awakening. At last we reach culture, our collective personality, the beliefs and behaviors of the Irish. On one level, these are perfect just as they are, but from a deeper perspective, we can grow. Given the troubles we have endured, the Irish are remarkably friendly, lively, and grounded. Ireland is ever flourishing with music, social buzz, sport, literature, and much besides, but we still experience the legacy of historical trauma, which drives crime, poverty, addiction, and emotional dysfunction. This may be passed down through epigenetic programming. Check out Rupert Sheldrake for that. Although Bruce Lipton, also, The Biology of Belief, has important things there, but Rupert Sheldrake talks about memory fields being passed down through families and cultures. But it certainly is inherited through the cultural programming we receive from those who raise us and the choices they make in showing us what is and what should be in every little thing. We also wrestle with a strong cultural vein urging us to obey authority, pounded into us by the British, then rogue clergy, and now the EU and NGOs disseminating extremist identity politics and cultural Marxism. A final example is the almost total loss of our language, which not only causes unconscious shame, sorrow, and outrage, even to those who profess to wish it dead, but also in the period of mass transition from Gaeilge to Barla, some 2 centuries ago, Irish to English, a whole generation of parents took the sacrifice of being unable to communicate clearly with their children. They wouldn't speak Irish to them to cultivate this language they lacked, and so raised a generation necessarily less intimate with their family. Given the unfortunate tendency in many Irish families for emotions and inner struggles to be repressed and wished away, it seems plausible this is yet another maladaptive cultural legacy of ancestral troubles. Let us agree we are not perfect. At times we are a mess. Cultural awakening means healing these wounds, but also growing the good we already have and seeing what else we can find. Gaelic Awakening advocates taking the best from culture anywhere and everywhere, and to that end encourages all Irish people to travel far and wide. But we believe the traditions handed down to us are beautiful, sacred, and nourishing, deserving endorsement above that afforded to foreign cultures. Exchange of ways is an enriching thing, but not knowing which way you are going or which sport you are playing is indecent. We are Irish, and that is fair. We can have immigrants or visitors live among us according to their own ways and take the good with the bad, but like their home countries would for us, we must convey our limits. No woman should fear walking at night without a male companion. Disrespecting another's religion cannot justify attacking life, liberty, or property. Some things are not up for debate. We need not say our ways are objectively best, but we can say they deserve priority in Ireland. The time has come for us to clarify just what it is that we modern Irish men and women hold dear. What is the ideal pattern of belief and behavior we ask our children to be aiming at? There will be debate on some issues due to philosophy, locality, class, and occupation, but we can agree on fundamentals: freedom of speech and religion, equal rights for all citizens, the need for honesty, empathy, hard work, kindness, courage, humor, humility, and service. Ireland is a jewel, but riddled with contradictions, so let us strive to clarify our truest nature. Okay, last paragraph, here we go. We can start by reviving or revving up the best of Gaelic tradition and build on this with the best of other European culture that resonates with us, as well as culture from further afield. We are blessed to live in a universe where new ways of believing and behaving are always available, but for the purposes of regrounding our culture, we need not reinvent the wheel. Each of us can immerse ourselves in Irish mythology, folklore, history, biographies, poetry, song, literature, drama, proverbs, Brehon law, art, sean-nós, trad, modern music, gaeilge. We can learn and play instruments, study and speak Irish, write music, poetry, and stories, or at least read them. Imagine an Ireland where a good minority are living like this. Would you like to live there? By taking a conscious role in rebalancing our culture, each of us empowers Irish awakening. And this is a PDF. I just, by clicking on that button, so you can see down the bottom, you can click download, and you got it. And back, so if that makes sense, just click here, you get it. Here, you get what we want, like a PDF of the policies. This is written in simpler language than what we've just gone through, but we just did the deep dive for those interested in kind of getting deeper into this, beyond just politics, but spirituality and across the board, a holistic vision for Irish revivification and evolution through oneself. Because you are Ireland. If you are Irish, you are Ireland. Ireland is within you. Ireland is not separate from you. You are one branch on the tree of Ireland, and we can bloom and create a bunch of branches coming off us if you have a family. And we are serving a beautiful land and a beautiful way of life in so doing. And so if you dig it, I'm digging too. Do you dig it? Can you dig it? Like, originally apparently comes from undigging to. Do you understand? It was from Irish immigrants in the USA. Gaelic Awakening. Join the movement. Put in your details there. Boom. Sign me up, Captain. And we're good to go. So, go mille maith for listening. And if you have any questions, comments, observations, please put it in the chat or contact me, info@gaelicawakening.ie, or on Twitter, Gaelic Awakening, Jamie McGlue on Twitter, I think Jamie McGlue on Instagram or Facebook, etc. This podcast, Rendezvous with Jamie McGlue. If you like it, please share it. And a bit of music. We're meant to have music. All right, this is going to be a very brief song. It goes like this. And you can do this anytime you're not feeling so good energetically. But we can turn it into a song. Oh, my baby, oh, my girl, Om, my people, Om, my world. Om, can't we be free? Om, is it destiny? Om, some wise souls are we. Cool. See you later, everyone.